Hey friends, some of you may have heard the news from last night. There was a leak in the Supreme Court. That's a whole nother issue. But there was a leak in the Supreme Court over a potential ruling in a case on abortion. I believe the case comes from Mississippi. And in the leak of the opinion, it looks like Roe v. Wade might be overturned. Now, it was just a draft of the opinion, and so things can change, people can switch their votes, but if true, when the ruling happens in June, I believe, this is massive news if this is actually true. What does this mean? What should our response be as Christians? Well, let's talk about it. Roe v. Wade codified the so-called right to abortion. And what that meant was all across all 50 states, every state had to legalize abortion, at least to some degree, first trimester, et cetera, et cetera. And it took the ruling power away from the states to decide individually whether or not to allow abortion or what that should look like. And it was codified. It was federalized across the whole country. So if Roe v. Wade falls, if that ruling is overturned, what happens is that it goes back to the way it used to be. Well, how did it used to be? It's exactly what I said. Each individual state would then decide whether to allow abortion or to what degree to allow abortion. Okay, so that's what would happen. It would go back to the states. If you live in a blue state, let's say California, my guess is not much would change. California is about as far pro-choice as it gets. In fact, to the point where there might be a bill that's passed that allows infanticide. So not just, abortion wouldn't just end once the baby's born, but in California, it might come to be the case that you could kill your baby up to, I think it's 28 days, give or take, after birth. And so, in blue states, nothing much will change for the most part. In red states and purple states, this is where a lot of people would act to ban abortion completely or ban abortion except for very extreme, rare situations like the health of the mother is at stake or something like that. And so that's kind of what will happen now from a legal perspective if all of this holds up. What should the Christian response be? Well, at Dangerous Faith and in my teachings throughout the years, I developed, the 3 H's. And it's not really unique to me, but I call it the 3 H's: head, heart, hands. And so with our head, it's how we think, it's what, doctrines, theology, et cetera, et cetera. My question to you, when it comes to what's the Christian response is, are you brushed up on your apologetics? Because what's going to happen for the next few months, maybe the foreseeable future, is the whole bus is going to get thrown at you. You're going to hear every argument, good, bad, rhetorically smooth, rhetorically rough, whatever it might be, from, if abortions are banned, women are going to die from back alley abortions with coat hangers, stuff like that, to maybe more emotionally difficult arguments to walk through and talk through, such as, well, what if the life of the mother is at stake? That is much harder to talk about than maybe some other things. You're going to talk about, when does life begin? As a pro-life person, I can be pretty consistent. It's at the moment of conception. But if you're pro-choice, you're going to have several responses. A fetus becomes a baby at 3 months, 6 months, at birth. You might get some Peter Singer type people that will say, maybe not till way after birth should a life be protected by the law. And so you're going to get all the things thrown at you. And what apologetics is, defending, advancing the Christian faith, is we need to be ready intellectually to answer questions and arguments very well. So number one, with our head, how is your apologetics in this area? I would brush up on that, and I can give resources if you would like. There's Stand to Reason and Cross-Examined and various other organizations that can really help here. Let's see. The next up comes our heart. How should we respond? Well, as Christians, we can be agents of peace, or we can be inflammatory. Social media does not help in this area. So as you go to talk to your family, your neighbors, your coworkers, fellow students, how do you go about doing that? Are you going to spread peace? Are you going to listen well? Are you going to speak kindly and be patient? Or are you going to try to be as rhetorically aggressive and inflammatory as you can be? Like, ha ha, this, that, the other, poke, poke, poke. Are you going to be a provocateur? Or are you going to be a loving, kind Christian? So one, we want to make sure we are agents of peace. Secondly, with our heart, how does this glorify God? How can I live through this situation in a way that glorifies God? He is our maker, our creator. We live a life in worship to him. What is the best way to do that through this situation where he is glorified and the gospel is spread and Jesus is made known throughout the earth? That is what we ultimately are trying to do, more than winning this court case or winning that court case. That's fine. That's good. But ultimately, we're after something deeper and more important. And so we want to be thinking that way. Finally, with our head, how can we love our neighbors through this? How can we encourage and comfort our neighbors? How can we show the love of Christ to those around us? We also need to be thinking about that. It's not just trying to win. Because guess what? You win some, you lose some. But we're after deeper things than just, ha ha, we won this cultural moment, la la la, whatever winning even looks like. People will have different definitions. It's not about winning. It's about, all right, loving God, loving others, being faithful and obedient. So those are things that we need to be meditating on in our hearts through this situation. Then finally, last but not least, we have our hands. What do we do? What do we say? How do we act? And so in this situation, I thought of a couple things. The first thing is we need to be a loving community to women. Pregnant women, women who have just had children, because think about it this way. For those who are not as informed, what are they hearing? If you're a woman, you're hearing, oh my goodness, the country's coming after your body. The country wants to control you legally, whatever. You have a bunch of men trying to grab a hold of you, this, that, the other. So if you're not informed, and this is what you're hearing as you go onto Facebook, Twitter, whatever it might be, you might be terrified. You might feel so alone and so scared. And as Christians, we need to recognize that, fair or not, that's how people might be feeling. And so we need to be very aware of that. And so again, how we handle that, can either glorify God and be a good response, or it can make that a lot worse. So we need to be active. We need to be serving. We need to be willing to help women who are alone, who don't have help. If we're going to talk about it, we need to be about it. So sometimes Christians are so good at talking and being active when it comes to social media, but when it comes to getting boots on the ground and actually helping people, sometimes we don't get to that part because we're like, well, I said something online, so I've done my part. No, we need to actually reach out, serve and help women who are lonely, afraid. They don't have answers. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to believe because voices are so strident on both sides. We need to be there for them, whether it's pregnancy centers, adoption, whatever that looks like. We need to be about it. Number one. Number two, there might be, I don't know what this is going to look like, from nasty rhetoric online, which in my mind isn't that big of a deal, to potential riots in the streets. I have no idea what the response will be from a major part of the country. But abortion is a sacrament of the secular. a sacrament of the secular. In fact, some people online have said abortion is sacred. Well, what does it mean to be sacred? You know, you think of holy and righteous, and these other religious words come to mind. Well, abortion is sacred. Well, that means it's really important to some people, almost in a religious sense, with zeal and passion and stuff that's closest to us as humans. Well, if abortion is sacred, and abortion might be taken away from some people depending on what state you live, well, people are going to fight back, sometimes rhetorically, but sometimes literally. And I don't know what that's going to look like in the coming months in the foreseeable future, but there's going to be massive campaigns of pressure if this opinion from the Supreme Court holds up, and this is the ruling, Roe v. Wade is overturned. The response could be incredibly massive, and we need to be ready for that as those on the pro-life side. So we need to be ready not only to love women, but also to engage with abortion activists, answer their arguments, answer their objections, but also being out in the streets peacefully. We need to protect the unborn. As Christians, we are put on this earth to protect those who have no voice, the defenseless, the helpless. There is no there's no larger group of defenseless people than babies in the womb, than children. We need to be staunch defenders, and whatever that looks like, legal steps, cultural steps, being active in a loving way on social media as a voice for truth with a balance in grace and truth. That's where we need to be. We need to be talking to our friends, our family, co-workers, fellow students in ways that glorify God, but, the way to glorify God is not only to be loving and kind, but also gracious and truthful. Truth matters. And so, those are just my quick thoughts. I don't know what the coming months will look like, but what should Christians do? Brush up on your apologetics, answer objections and arguments for abortion, be able to do that with our heart. We need to dwell and meditate on how can we glorify God through this situation, and how can we love our neighbors. And then with our hands, we need to be about it. We need to love women, be there, form a community around women. There are a lot of women that are going to be scared, but also we need to be staunch defenders of the truth and never back down from a fight. Not a literal fight, okay? Not a literal fight, but a fight for the unborn nonetheless. Anyways, friends, please share this video. Spread this video, respond and tell me, hey, does this make sense? What could I have said differently or said better? And above all, we want to glorify God with how we live in everything we do and everything we say. All right, friends, until next time.
Get it.